Usually, when we think about authoritarian regimes in fiction or massive oppressive systems, there's this built-in expectation of huge spectacle.
Oh, absolutely. Like the blockbuster movie version of tyranny.
Right. You picture the marching armies in perfectly synchronized lockstep or like giant blood-red banners draped over brutalist architecture.
Ominous speeches echoing over loudspeakers in a rain-slicked city square.
Exactly. The evil is incredibly loud. It's undeniable. And honestly, it's almost comforting in a strange way because we like our villains to be instantly recognizable.
We want the threat to be wearing a uniform.
Yeah.
Right. Something that clearly broadcasts its malevolence.
Yeah, we want to know exactly what we're fighting.
Yeah.
But that cinematic version of oppression gives the audience a really clear target. It draws a neat line between the oppressed and the oppressors.
It does. But when you step into the world of the script draft we're examining today, Season 3, Episode 5 of the series S03E05, that loudspeaker is entirely unplugged.
Completely unplugged. This episode is ominously titled Silence, by the way.
Right. And the marching armies, they're replaced by middle managers. We're looking at a landscape of control that is terrifyingly quiet.
It's the absolute definition of bureaucratic muddy waters, where evil doesn't arrive with this, dramatic musical score. It arrives in a manila folder.
A standard issue manila folder. It's chilling.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the focus of today's deep dive is analyzing this rich narrative primarily through the eyes of one specific character, the investigator.
A weary bureaucrat tasked with hunting down these hidden homes.
Yeah, the source text gives us this world with two parallel storylines, right? On one hand, you have families hiding in these symbiotic, living underground structures called kiths.
And on the other hand, the massive government apparatus actively hunting them.
Right. And the investigator is right at the center of this. Through her perspective, we're really going to explore the psychological weight of complicity.
And the stark contrast between sterile bureaucracy and organic life.
Exactly. Plus, that paralyzing nature of being at a moral crossroads.
Oh.
But to really get into this, I want you, the listener, to visualize the physical space this character occupies.
Yeah, imagine the cold, flickering, greenish hue of fluorescent lights in a totally generic government office.
The place with a name so bland it almost puts you to sleep, right? The Department of Housing Compliance.
Right, the Department of Housing Compliance. And contrast that stark, lifeless environment with the faint, pulsing amber glow of an underground kith.
Where families huddled together, surrounded by walls that literally breathe.
Now, I want you to imagine holding a thick, heavy manila folder in your hands under those fluorescent office lights.
And inside that folder, there aren't weapons or execution orders in the traditional sense.
No, just thermal satellite images, abstract blobs of heat printed on glossy paper. And those blobs are literally going to dictate whether that family in the amber glow lives or dies.
It's just so heavy. And that folder is really the fulcrum of the entire episode.
It really is.
So Act 1 introduces the investigator, and the visual storytelling just completely does away with grand exposition. We first meet her outside a nondescript government building.
Yeah, the writer specifically notes it's the kind of building that could be anywhere.
Right. American flag flapping listlessly, cheap security cameras. It's aggressively normal.
Aggressively normal is the perfect way to describe it. There's no sinister insignia. The architecture of oppression here is designed to look like a DMV or a regional tax office.
Yeah. And then we see her walking across the asphalt parking lot. She's in her 40s, wearing a standard security lanyard, holding a generic coffee cup.
And the script gives this devastating piece of character direction. It says she has the walk of someone who's been doing this too long.
Oh, that line hit me hard. Think about the kinesiology of that walk. It's not confident. It's not a terrified scurry either.
No, it's that heavy, momentum-driven trudge, a body moving purely out of habit.
Carrying this psychological burden that slowly eroded her posture over a decade.
And the script never gives her a name, right?
Not once. Not in the dialogue. Not in the action lines. She is only ever referred to by her function, the investigator.
Her personal identity has been completely subsumed by the machinery of this bureaucracy.
She's a verb, not a noun. She investigates.
Right.
That is the totality of her permitted existence.
Which is exactly what makes her lack of immediate action in this opening scene so striking.
Yeah. She reaches her car, but she doesn't pull the handle.
She just stops. She stands there in the parking lot staring back at the building she just left.
And her phone buzzes in her pocket like a notification, a demand from the system, and she completely ignores it.
Totally ignores it. When she finally forces herself to get into the driver's seat, She just sits behind the wheel. She doesn't start the engine.
Doesn't turn on the radio. Just this prolonged stillness.
It establishes a baseline of deep, unspoken hesitation. She's a reluctant gear in a massive machine.
The script is showing us the friction. She's resisting the turn.
Let's dig into the name of the agency for a second, because the Department of Housing Compliance is, honestly, a masterstroke of world building.
It sounds so mundane. Out of context, it sounds like local government.
Right, like the place that issues fines because you built your deck too close to the property line.
Or painted your house a shade of beige that violates the HOA rules, zoning laws, building permits, that kind of thing.
But here it's the weaponization of municipal paperwork.
Yeah, by calling it housing compliance, the regime cloaks a lethal authoritarian sweep in this gray, boring language of middle management.
It removes the moral weight entirely. You aren't destroying a family's home, you're correcting a compliance violation.
You aren't hunting dissidents. You're surveying unauthorized structures.
This is a crucial mechanism for how oppressive systems function in reality. They alter the vocabulary to distance the enforcer from the violence.
And her tools reflect that exact distancing. She doesn't carry a rifle. Her weapon is data.
Satellite data, specifically.
Yeah, she sits in her car, engine off, and opens that thick folder on the passenger seat. And she's just looking at thermal overlays and topographical maps with red circles drawn in marker.
It's also emotionally detached. The mechanics of thermal imaging are vital here.
Right, because a satellite miles above the Earth is just scanning for infrared radiation, heat.
Exactly. It filters out the visual spectrum,
Right.
doesn't see faces or color or texture, just a temperature differential.
So a map with a red circle doesn't look like a mother and child.
No, a thermal bloom on a black and white grid doesn't look like a grandmother teaching her grandson to read.
It reduces profound human life to a data anomaly, just a smudge of warmth that shouldn't be there, according to the zoning grid.
She's staring at a photo of a rocky hillside, but the thermal overlay shows a distinct shape buried beneath the earth.
But, okay, I have to ask a pushback question here. I want to challenge her mindset.
Go for it.
The script establishes that she's exhausted. She has that heavy walk. She hesitates at the car, ignores her phone. Signs of severe burnout, maybe moral injury.
Definitely moral injury.
So if she's so exhausted by this job, why even open the folder in the car? No one is watching her. She hasn't clocked in for a field assignment.
That's a great point.
Why subject herself to looking at the thermal image if it brings her dread? Isn't there a part of her that's still addicted to the hunt? Or is it pure masochism?
That is a highly perceptive read on her psychology. Someone deeply embedded in a toxic system doesn't just have a clean break where they suddenly despise everything they do.
Right, it's complicated.
It's a severe internal conflict between her eroding conscience and her professional competence.
Competence.
Yeah, the system trains its workers to find the anomaly. Opening that folder might just be sheer muscle memory at this point.
Or a twisted form of validation.
Exactly. She might hate the outcome, but she knows she is exceptionally good at the job. She spots the subtle thermal variance that a junior analyst would miss.
It's like she's a highly advanced piece of software, like a content moderation algorithm for a social network.
Okay, I like this analogy.
Her entire programming is designed to scan inputs and flag violations. For years, she just flagged and deleted. But slowly, a glitch developed in her code.
She started to feel the pain of the content she's deleting.
Exactly. But she lacks the administrative privileges to rewrite her own core program.
So she just keeps scanning.
Keeps flagging, feeling the pain with every deletion, because stopping would mean ceasing to exist as she was built. She opens the folder because scanning the data is the only thing she knows how to do.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it. The algorithm has developed empathy, but lacks agency.
Well, yeah. Empathy, but no agency.
She finds the abstract warmth on the map because she is programmed to, but the tragedy is that we, the audience, know what that warmth actually is.
Right. The script doesn't leave us in the sterile parking lot. It cuts immediately to the physical reality of the targets, the kiths.
And the kiths are arguably the most breathtaking conceptual element of this entire narrative.
I was blown away by them. We see two distinct kith structures. First, this underground burrow sheltering 3 generations of a family,
Buried beneath 16 feet of packed earth.
just to shield them from the surface. And then there's an elder kith on a remote mountain ridge.
Disguised as a natural granite outcropping, home to an older woman known only as the Keeper.
The sensory contrast here is so deliberate. The investigator's world is full of artificiality.
Fluorescent corridors, anonymous motels, air conditioners humming.
It's stark, climate-controlled, lifeless. But the kiths are described as having the texture of something grown, not built.
Grown, not built. That implies a symbiotic relationship with the environment.
Right. These aren't survivalist concrete bunkers. They're biological sanctuaries.
The script explicitly notes that the kith has a heartbeat, a barely audible thrum.
It reacts to its inhabitants. Like in the cold open when the compliance patrol boots crunch on the gravel above.
The kith goes completely dark. It suppresses its own thermal and visual signature to protect them.
And when the danger passes, it slowly brings up this faint, warm, amber glow, sensing their relief.
The walls literally respond to the physiological state of the people inside.
So when you realize what these structures are, the investigator's job takes on this horrifying new dimension.
She isn't dismantling terrorist cells. She's hunting organic, symbiotic ecosystems.
A form of life in harmony with the Earth. And her thermal satellites are totally blind to that.
Blind to the meaning of the heat. They just see the physical friction of life.
They completely miss the profound connection to human history happening in those walls.
Let's talk about the mechanics of that memory, because the archive seed scene in Act 1 is stunning.
Oh, man. The grandmother sorting through those small, dark objects.
Right, the archive seeds. She presses one against the curved, organic wall of the kith.
And the wall physically absorbs it into its membrane.
And suddenly, dense, glowing text starts scrolling across the surface like bioluminescence.
It's biological data storage. Instead of vulnerable digital servers that the government can easily wipe, they encoded human history into the genetic material of seeds.
And the kith itself acts as the hard drive and the monitor.
That sequences the data and displays it. It's brilliant.
And it explains why the Department of Housing Compliance wants to eradicate them so badly.
Right, a totalitarian regime demands a monopoly on truth. If your citizens use a digital network, you just alter the database.
But how do you delete a forest?
Exactly. How do you wipe data that's grown in root systems and passed down in the pockets of grandmothers?
You can't. The kiths are a decentralized, organic ledger of human history.
And that grandmother is teaching her 8-year-old grandson to read that glowing text.
The script notes the seeds carry knowledge that might matter someday.
They aren't just hiding to survive. They are custodians of human memory. Preserving a civilization, the regime is trying to pave over with asphalt.
The child touches the seed to the wall, watches the text appear, and just nods with this quiet solemnity.
A deep reverence for the past.
Yeah.
And then you contrast that with the investigator.
Sitting in her mass-produced sedan, drinking synthesized coffee.
Disconnected from her own emotions, let alone the deep past, she's an agent of erasure.
Her job is literally to snuff out this warmth and turn that living archive back into cold dirt.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The investigator's thermal imaging is like looking at an X-ray of a human heart and only seeing a mechanical pump.
Totally missing the fact that it's keeping a soul alive.
Exactly. But that tension between the clinical data and the human reality, it finally snaps.
The pressure fractures when she visits the office of her superior, Act 2.
The Deputy Director of Special Compliance. This scene is a masterclass in writing the subtle mechanics of complicity.
She walks through these fluorescent corridors, passing rows and rows of identical cubicles,
Emphasizing the sheer scale of the bureaucratic machine, and enters his office.
The set dressing tells us everything. Bland, rectangular room, American flag in the corner.
Framed photos of the Deputy Director shaking hands with unnamed officials.
Visual definition of a man whose career is built on covering his liabilities.
Right. The script describes him as having the soft physique of someone who manages rather than acts.
That distinction is critical. He's the architect. He signs the warrants.
But he doesn't break down the doors. He relies on people like the investigator to translate his abstract whims into devastating reality.
And the most suffocating part of this scene is the profound use of silence.
Throughout the entire meeting, the investigator doesn't speak a single word.
Not one. The deputy director talks at her. He justifies the upcoming sweep, waiting for her to validate him.
And the writer explicitly puts a note in the dialogue block. She could say many things. She says nothing.
Why the deliberate choice to keep her mute? We have to look at Hannah Arendt's concept of the banality of evil here.
Right, oppressive systems don't just function because of a few psychopaths at the top.
Exactly. They function because legions of ordinary people quietly agree to do their jobs.
So for the investigator, silence is a structural requirement of her employment.
If she spoke, she'd have to articulate the reality of what they're doing. puncturing that insulated bureaucratic bubble.
Her silence is the lubricant that keeps the machine running.
So he breaks the silence by sliding a new folder across his heavy wooden desk.
And at first, she doesn't even reach for it. It's a physical reluctance.
He taps it and says, "Take a look, Sector 4, and she finally opens it.
And this is where the abstraction shatters. Because inside, it's not just the blurry thermal blobs anymore.
High-resolution surveillance photo, close-up shots of the kith's exterior.
And what do they show? They show children's drawings visible through a window.
And a carefully tended garden patch near the entrance.
Those images are the ultimate weapon against her apathy.
You can justify bulldozing a compliance violation. You can compartmentalize an anomaly.
But you cannot look at a child's crayon drawing or a vegetable garden and maintain the illusion that it's just data.
A garden requires nurturing. A drawing requires imagination.
The moment she sees those details, the psychological firewall collapses. The targets transition in her mind from compliance issues back into families.
But I want to hear your thoughts on her reaction, because this is the moment she becomes very difficult to root for.
Oh, absolutely. I have to push back on her character here. Is she actually feeling empathy, or is she just terrified of the guilt?
Good question.
Because she looks at the photos, she sees undeniable proof of their humanity, and then she closes the folder, picks it up, and walks out.
Doesn't scream at him, doesn't resign.
Doesn't throw it back across the desk. Doesn't carrying the file make her just as complicit, almost more culpable now that she knows.
It absolutely does. That's the terrifying tragedy of her arc. Acting in ignorance is one thing, but recognizing the humanity of your victims and still participating.
That's profound moral failure.
But as to why she walks out with it, we have to consider the momentum of a lifelong career in a systemic hierarchy.
Her whole identity is intertwined with the machine.
Right. Stopping takes an active, terrifying effort. Throwing your body into the gears.
While going along with it just requires picking up some cardboard and keeping your mouth shut.
The gravity of the system pulls her forward, and she lacks the escape velocity to break orbit.
That is chilling. Taking the file in that bright office is passive cowardice, but taking it to a cheap motel room and sitting alone in the dark.
That's where the psychological toll manifests. Acts 3 and 4 pivot away from bureaucracy into the anatomy of isolation.
The writer uses deliberate parallel editing here, right? Cross-cutting.
Masterful cross-cutting. The narrative swings like a pendulum between the investigator in her sterile motel room and the keeper at her elder kith on the mountain ridge.
Forcing the audience to directly compare their internal states.
Let's analyze the investigator's environment first. She's in a cheap, anonymous motel.
Anonymous is the key word. She works for a massive government agency, hundreds of colleagues, yet she is utterly, profoundly alone.
Sitting on a stiff mattress, the folder open next to her.
And she takes out her personal phone, scrolls through her contacts, and stops on a single entry that just reads, "No name, just a number."
She stares at it for a long time. Her thumb hovers over the call button, but she doesn't press it.
And the script never reveals who that number belongs to. It drives the reader crazy.
What's your theory?
I mean, is it a tip line to an underground railroad for the kiths? A defector, or something mundane but tragic like an estranged sibling or ex-partner she alienated?
The ambiguity is intentional. The literal identity is secondary to what the number represents psychologically.
An alternative path, connection, salvation.
But notice she hasn't saved a name, just digits.
Reflecting her own loss of identity.
Her job systematically strips names and humanity from targets, and it's bled into her personal life so deeply she can't even allow herself the comfort of a name for her one lifeline.
She locks the phone without calling, lies back, staring at the popcorn ceiling.
And the ambient noise of her isolation is emphasized in the sound design notes.
The persistent mechanical hum of the wall-mounted air conditioner.
A heavy rumble of an 18-wheeler outside. A bleak, lifeless soundscape, machinery operating without purpose.
It's like she's surrounded by a massive crowd, the whole Department of Housing Compliance, but she's the only one who can hear the ice cracking under their feet.
That's a powerful analogy. And then the script cuts immediately to the keeper.
The contrast is breathtaking. The keeper is outside her granite-disguised kith on the ridge, wrapped in a blanket, looking up at the stars.
She is the one being hunted, marginalized, targeted for state-sanctioned erasure.
Yet she is infinitely more grounded, more connected, and more alive than the investigator.
The mechanics of her connection to the kith are beautiful. She starts humming a low melody.
And the kith's internal thrum shifts frequency to harmonize with her voice.
They've done this before many nights. That's the script note. A duet between a human and a habitat.
She stops humming and just listens to the thrum, feeling an acknowledgement that isn't sound or light, but just presence, meeting present.
The absolute antithesis of the motel room. The investigator is surrounded by modern infrastructure noise, but devoid of real presence, a ghost haunting her own life.
While the keeper is bathed in profound presence despite the intimidating silence of the wilderness.
The script is making a structural argument about the nature of home.
Right. The department enforcing housing is actually destroying living homes for the sake of sterile containment units.
The tension in the motel room breaks when the investigator's phone lights up.
Buzzing, cutting through the AC hum. An automated notification from the deputy director's office.
And it acts as the ticking clock. It reads, "Warrant approved, execute sector sweep at 0600.
0600. That marks the point of no return.
The bureaucratic machine has moved past abstract planning. The paperwork is signed. The system demands kinetic action.
That 0600 deadline forces her out of the motel. I felt this overwhelming dread reading that notification.
Going back to your algorithm analogy, it's like she just received a hard-coded command from the server. Delete the files now.
Yes. She's sitting on that bed, holding photos of a child's garden, knowing at 6:06 a.m. heavy machinery will crush it into the dirt. And she has to provide the coordinates.
She can no longer hide in paralysis, because 0600 arrives regardless of her moral crisis.
Dawn breaks. And this brings us to Act 5, the execution of the sweep and the ultimate climax of her arc.
The crossroads. The tension built here by cross-cutting is brilliant. Let's start up on the mountain.
The keeper wakes up before dawn because the biological thrum of her kith changes rhythm, sensing the threat.
The interior walls pulse in a frantic color, a deep, bruised blue-violet. A biological warning system.
She steps out onto the ridge and sees headlights of transport vehicles winding up the mountain road.
Down in the valley, the underground burrow's alarm triggers too.
The grandmother touches the curved wall, and bioluminescent text translates the vibration. System sweep initiated.
The government machinery has arrived. The abstract threat is digging into the topsoil.
But what fascinates me is the keeper's reaction to the headlights. She has a 30-minute head start.
And she doesn't run into the woods. She doesn't scramble to hide things.
The script provides her internal logic. There's nowhere to go that matters.
So she calmly makes a cup of tea, brings the steaming mug out to the outcropping, sits down, and just watches them approach.
And as she sits, her kith's frantic blue-violet pulse slows down, matching her calm heartbeat. A profound, heartbreaking display of acceptance.
We really need to analyze the mechanics of that acceptance. It is not surrender.
No, surrender implies a breaking of the spirit.
Exactly. The keeper is demonstrating a deep understanding that her life, her history, and her connection to the earth are fundamental truths.
The government can physically destroy the shell of the kith. They can end her biological life.
But they cannot invalidate the truth of her existence. By refusing to run, by sitting and drinking tea, she denies the bureaucracy its desired outcome.
The system wants panic, right? It wants to feel powerful by inducing terror.
Her absolute calm is its own form of quiet, devastating rebellion, maintaining dignity in the face of an undignified machine.
While the keeper is drinking tea, where's the investigator? You'd expect her to be in the lead vehicle directing the convoy.
But she isn't. She is parked on the dusty shoulder of a highway, miles away.
Sitting at a literal and metaphorical junction, outside her running car, early morning light, holding her phone with the 0600 message glaring.
Looking at two intersecting roads, one winds up the mountain to Sector 4, her assigned coordinates, where the keeper is waiting.
And the other road goes north, away from the sector, away from the Department of Housing Compliance, away from everything she knows.
This is the moment the entire 45-page script has meticulously built toward.
All the hesitation, the silence, the isolation, it funnels into this single agonizing choice.
She looks at the mountain road. She looks at the north road. A long, heavy beat of silence.
She gets back into the driver's seat, puts her hands on the steering wheel, shifts the car into drive.
And then the writer does something incredibly audacious. The script cuts away.
It hides which road she takes. The cut to black on her choice is agonizing.
It deliberately starves the audience of closure.
So what does this all mean? The script spends so much time focusing on her internal crisis. But if the trucks are already going up the mountain...
The keeper is watching their headlights. The sweep is happening.
Exactly. Does her choice at the crossroads even matter to anyone but herself?
That is the most painful, brilliant philosophical question here. We have to break it down into two layers. Systemic and moral.
Okay, systemically.
Systemically, functionally, no. Her individual choice does not stop the machinery. Oppressive bureaucracies are engineered to have redundancies.
Right. They don't rely on a single point of failure.
If one gear jams or one investigator drives north, the system doesn't collapse. A backup file is open, another gear takes its place and grinds forward.
The system's momentum is vastly larger than her individual participation. So functionally, the Keeper's fate is sealed regardless of her crisis of conscience.
Likely, yes, but on a moral and spiritual level, her choice matters infinitely. It's the only thing that matters.
If she turned up the mountain.
She's surrendered the last fraction of her soul to the compliance machine. She recognized the humanity, felt the empathy, and still chose to act as executioner out of pure inertia.
But if she turned north?
She chose her conscience, abandoned her post, discarded the badge, and made herself a target of the system she served. She becomes the anomaly to be hunted.
The tragedy of the North Road is that her individual rebellion doesn't play out like a Hollywood movie. It doesn't magically save the Keeper.
No, it doesn't stop the convoy, but it saves her own humanity.
It reflects a haunting truth about systemic change and resistance. We're conditioned to want the heroic act that immediately stops the tanks.
But in reality, the vital first act of defiance simply means refusing to drive the tank anymore, even as you watch it roll past you toward destruction.
Refusing to drive the tank even as it rolls past you. That is incredibly sobering. The script doesn't leave us with a sense of victory.
No, it leaves us with the underground burrow. The final scene shows the family eating their synthesized, preserved vegetables.
The mother looking at the curved, pulsing walls, listening to the thrum that never stops beating.
16 feet of packed earth holding steady against the boots of the compliance officers above.
They are hidden, and they are terrified. But they are profoundly connected, and not alone.
And the investigator is entirely alone, regardless of which road she chose.
That is her ultimate tragedy. The families in the kiths are victims of brutal circumstance, but possess a depth of memory and biological connection that the investigator has been completely starved of.
The system didn't just destroy the kiths, it hollowed her out first, turning her into a vessel for enforcement.
Synthesizing this whole deep dive, the script for Silence is a devastating exploration of how complicity is manufactured.
Using the investigator as a lens to show how oppressive systems mask their violence.
Not monsters with fangs, but bureaucrats with lanyards. Manila folders, thermal overlays, performance reviews.
Experiencing the terrifying transition from viewing people as thermal targets to recognizing them as living families with gardens.
And it leaves you, the listener, in a very intentional state of discomfort. I want you to reflect on this.
When have you found yourself going along with a system, a workplace policy, or a societal norm just because it was standard procedure?
Checking the boxes, only to suddenly realize the human cost hidden behind the paperwork.
It's terrifyingly easy to hide your conscience behind "I'm just doing my job" because the bureaucracy is designed to provide that exact shield.
The paperwork acts as a firewall against our own empathy. And that brings me to a final, lingering thought for you to mull over.
Building on the title itself.
Right. Think about the title, Silence. We assume it refers to the families hiding in the dark, holding their breath while officers crunch on gravel above.
The imposed silence of the hunted.
But maybe that's a deliberate misdirection by the writer. Maybe the most deafening, destructive silence in this story isn't the family in the dark.
It's the investigator.
Standing in the bright fluorescent light of the deputy director's office. She has the power to speak out. She has the undeniable photographic evidence of humanity right in her hands.
And she chooses to just stare at the file and say absolutely nothing.
If the Department of Housing Compliance is just a nondescript building that could be anywhere, what quiet, beautiful, growing things are we systematically destroying in our own world, simply because we refuse to break the silence?